Britcar headed to Oulton Park for round 3 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship, with another strong entry of almost 30 cars competing over 2 categories, endurance and sprint. Having dominated Class 5 for production-based cars in the opening rounds, sprint category leader Tim Docker arrived in Cheshire with a new TCR spec VW Golf, having stepped up to Class 4.
I really wanted a bigger challenge, and I've got one. In a way, it's an easier car to drive than the Scirocco, but it's more physical. I guess you're going that little bit quicker, you've got a little bit more grip, so you're hanging on a little bit more. But in many ways, it's easier to drive than the Scirocco. It's a fantastic car.
Another TCR car in action is the Maximum Motorsport Seat. Team leader Stuart Lyons is normally partnered by British touring car star Adam Morgan, but a date clash means that this weekend his co-driver will be 31-time BTCC race winner Matt Jackson.
Adam Morgan, my normal teammate this year, has gone to touring car at Croft, so I thought I'd try and get a decent replacement. And Matt, I managed to talk him coming back out racing, because it's been well documented he hasn't been racing this year, but he's come out and in qualifying he's just smashed the fastest lap in and all that type of stuff, so he hasn't lost any of his ability.
The car's mega, I have to say that the Maximum Motorsport car really is impressive, so that side of it's good, and obviously endurance slightly different. I mean, Stu's pretty quick, he can hang on to most things, so that side of it's okay. And yeah, we were just talking, it's obviously, my background is sprint racing, so you come in with no tyres after 20 minutes. Stuart did remind me that the race is an hour. Well, the first one was 50, and then we got a 2-hour race, so don't go and kill it. So we've got to see. We're just going to have to see how it pans out.
Another BTCC connection is this Audi. Nicknamed Sherman, this ex-Rob Austin British touring car is now run by father and son Robert and Alex Day.
Yeah, well, it's certainly an interesting car to drive, especially at Oulton, where it's very tight, compact circuit, and with this championship there's loads of different types of cars, different speeds and whatever. My background is junior saloon cars, then on to junior Genesis. They're 100 horsepower at max. Jumping into this, which is 350 or so, rear-wheel drive. Yeah, on cold tyres, it's just hilarious.
Ahead of the race, the Reflex Racing team had some repair work to do, following an off in qualifying.
One of the previous cars was laying down some oil, which we went over. On the first corner, we did collide with the wall gently, removing the mirror and pushing the bodywork back. But yeah, the boys are hard at work fixing it, and we should be out for the race.
Another driver caught out by the oil was Gary Colclough, but he managed to avoid the barriers and qualified 5th in class. Less fortunate were EDF Motorsport. Their Aston Martin badly damaged after just 1 lap of qualifying and out for the day.
We've hit a sausage curb and literally it's fired a hole right through the sump. So yeah, really unfortunate start to the weekend, although we officially haven't even really started.
Having missed a race in the previous round at Silverstone due to a qualifying crash, the Moss Motorsport BMW of John Watt and Christian Prosser was back in action and going well, topping the times in Sprint Class 4 and breaking into the top 10 overall. Out for the first time this season, the HSG Sport Ford Focus of Rick Woods and Mark Wakefield set the fastest qualifying time for a Class 5 car. The Focus out-qualified the theoretically faster Class 4 Honda of Synchro Motorsport. The new for 2018 Civic of Dan Wheeler and Alan James still under development.
We didn't come testing here yesterday. We spent the day at Donington trying to get a full day in, so we're still learning the track for us. It's a new car as well for this season. So Dan took the free practice this morning, so I've only had a couple of laps in quali, but we're struggling to keep up with the Class 4 cars. We've got a fair bit more to do, I think. We've got some things planned in the future to get some weight out of the car, and we can't make any more power out of it, so we're just trying to get the weight down if we can.
At the end of qualifying, Matt Jackson had taken the Maximum Motorsport Seat onto Class 4 pole, an impressive 8th overall. That was 2 places clear of the best Class 3 qualifiers, Simon Rudd and Tom Barley, in the Team Hard Ginetta. Meanwhile, the first 3 rows of the grid for Race 1 would be filled, as expected, by the higher performance entries in Classes 1 and 2. Alan Purbrick and David Bryce taking 6th place in the ALP Racing Seika, just 0.4 of a second behind the similar machine of Paul Rose. and only 1/10 of a second quicker than Rose, and with the fourth fastest time was the BMW of former production class champions Mike Moss and Tom Howard. Richard Neary has been a multiple race winner in the ABBA Racing Mercedes this season, and he managed to qualify third fastest here, despite running very few laps in the session.
There was oil on turn one, so we didn't want to go out early in the session because the first corner I think was, quite dangerous. So we wanted a few of the cars to sort of sweep the track up for us, and then we were going to go out. I missed getting my lap in by about 3 seconds. It went red just before I hit the line, and that I think undoubtedly would have been my best lap, but I missed it and it red flagged. So if it reds, you lose the lap. If you don't get over the line before it reds, I lost the lap.
Pipping Neary to that front row starting position was the WPI Motorsport Porsche of Michael Igoe and Adam Wilcox. But it was a comfortable pole position for David Mason and Ross Wiley by over 1.7 seconds.
It was a great lap actually, had a lot of fun out there, a lot of traffic, there was also a lot of oil in the circuit, so I had to push but be careful at the same time, and yeah, it's nice to start the day with a pole position. I always have a lot of fun around Oulton. It's a good driver circuit. Quite tight for these GT cars now to race on, but yeah, nevertheless that's what makes it just that little bit more exciting.
So this is how the top 10 would line up for the first race of the day, the 50-minute sprint. 5 different marks filling the first 5 positions on the grid. Reigning champion Ross Wiley led them away for the rolling start, with the Porsche of Michael Igoe narrowly fending off the Mercedes of Richard Neary for second into turn 1. Meanwhile, the number 25 Ginetta of Sarah Moore went straight on the attack for a place in the top 10. So down the avenue for the first time, it was Wiley from Igoe and Neary, followed by Rose, Bryce and Steve Harris. The trio of Forsakers all moving ahead of the Moss Motorsport BMW. Matt Jackson holding 8th in the Seat, with Moore going from 12th to 9th in the Tockwith Motorsports Ginetta, as the Green Astra of Darrell Wilson also advanced. As they came back into view over Hilltop, Wiley's Ferrari was already beginning to pull clear, but with 2nd, 3rd and 4th still bunched together. Although Rose struggled to slow down for the Foster chicane, went a bit deep into the corner and was immediately sucked back in by the ALP Racing Saker of Bryce and Perbrick. The Green Machine of Steve Harris not far behind. Further back, there was also a battle developing between Chris Murphy's Aston and Rob Baker in the world's most powerful smart car. On his pole lap, Wiley's average speed around the tight confines of Oulton Park had been a fraction under 100 miles an hour. The speeds of these front-running GTs and sports cars hugely impressive as they rocketed onto lap 2. With the Ferrari already 1.7 seconds clear at the end of the opening lap, championship rival Richard Neary was keen not to lose too much time behind the Porsche, but Igoe was more than matching the might of the Mercedes. Further back, the Reflex Racing Audi of the days was trying hard to find a way past the Bespoke Racing Porsche of Marcus Fothergill and Dave Bennett. And having slipped behind Murphy's Aston, Rob Baker now had one eye on the mirrors as Christy Durand closed in for 2nd in Class 5 with a Slide Sports Golf. Wiley continued to push hard at the front, and when 2nd and 3rd emerged over the brow, they arrived in a new order, Neary having guided the Mercedes through to 2nd spot, but with Igoe only in his 2nd season of GT racing, continuing to lead Class 2 by some distance in the WPI Motorsport 911. The white Ginetta of 2017 championship runner-up Darren Lewis ran 14th and continued to lead a train of midfield cars. The Audi was now 3rd in the queue, having dispatched of the Bespoke Porsche, and Day was already homing in on the John Watt Christian Prosser BMW. The CTF Alphatune Seat had its mirrors full of the Class 5 leading number 41 Ford of HSG Sport, which in turn was being pressed by reigning sprint class champions Track Focused, the Cayman driven by father and son duo Rick and Brad Neverson. 2 laps in and the Ferrari led by 3.8 seconds, but with Wiley well aware that he'd need to hand gentleman driver David Mason a much bigger cushion to have any chance of beating the Mercedes to the win. Sarah Moore had now guided the number 25 Ginetta G50 up to 8th place and 2nd in Class 4, while the newer spec G55 of Rudd and Barley was comfortably leading Class 3. Just ahead of them both, Matt Jackson in 7th place and leading Class 4 here at Oulton, scene of his maiden British touring car victory back in 2007. Into Old Hall Corner, the Mitsubishi-powered smart car of Rob Baker and Lucas Nanetti maintained 2nd in Class 5, using the 300-plus brake horsepower to good effect. With the top 2 now out of sight, the battle for 3rd place and the Class 2 lead was hotting up, as Fun Cup Championship director Paul Rose closed the gap to the Igoe Porsche in the car that he'd taken to title success in the CNC Head Sports and Saloon Championship. The gap between 8th and 9th was also being reduced, as the always impressive Sarah Moore continued to punch above her weight, charging after the Class 2 Moss Motorsport BMW. Her older brother Nigel was Britcar champion in 2016. Also making positive progress was the Alex Day and Rob Day driven Audi, which had quickly caught and then passed the other Moss Motorsport BMW to move up to third in Sprint Class 4, behind only Sarah Moore and Darryl Wilson. Richard Neary's 16-year-old son Sam was making his race debut, but the number 14 Ginetta ran wide and the Seat of John Clonis and Chris Bentley came whistling past. Up front, it was game on in the battle for third place. Rose now all over the back of Igo and on the ragged edge through Old Hall. The tail end of the Seeker dancing around as the pair plummeted down through the avenue and towards Cascades. Former British GT class champion Adam Wilcox was due to take over the Porsche at half distance, while former Slick 50 Saloon champion Rose was driving alone. And the other two Seekers were weaving their way through the traffic as former Spa 25-hour winner Steve Harris continued to hang on to the tail of the black and orange ALP machine. Darryl Wilson's green Astra was now being shadowed by the KTM Crossbow of Mike McCullum for 14th place, though the pair ran in two different classes. At the approach to mid-distance, Ross Wiley had now stretched his lead to 5 seconds, but it still looked as though Neary, driving solo, was in the box seat for the race victory. Amongst the drivers to take their mandatory pit stop early was Chris Murphy in the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston, as the battle for second place continued to rage on. Rose trying everything to find her way past Igo, but so far to no avail. The race-leading Ferrari was last to pit and David Mason emerged just in front of Richard Neary. With more than 20 minutes still to run, septuagenarian Mason was going to have to dig deep. Another driver to fear was Adam Wilcox, who had taken over the third-place Porsche from Michael Igo and was lapping significantly quicker than the Ferrari. The pair having finished on the rostrum at a wet Oulton Park in 2017 in Igo's debut season. Fourth was Steve Harris and down to fifth was Paul Rose. He had moved ahead of the Porsche after the pit stops but had miscalculated his minimum stop time and had subsequently been brought in for a stop-go penalty. Alan Purbrick's Seeker completed the top 6, finally on course for a good result after some bad luck in recent attempts. Sean Cooper had now dragged the KTM back up to 7th place in the latter stages. The track-focused team boss always quick around his home circuit. And then a challenge for the lead with a better exit from Druids. The Mercedes glided past the Ferrari and Neary cemented the position under braking for Lodge Corner. Late in the race, Tim Docker found himself off-road in the TCR Seat and was bound for the pits, while Paul Rose pushed hard to catch his former Fun Cup teammate Steve Harris for what was now 3rd place, the Ferrari of Mason having dropped to 5th in the closing stages. The leading Mercedes now had a 25-second lead, thanks to another pit stop penalty, this time for the 2nd place Porsche. Neary lapped the number 15 Tockwith Ginetta of Edmore and Marmaduke Hall, which was now up to 8th place from 14th on the grid. The two teenagers back on form after being plagued with unreliability in the early part of the season. Matt Greenwood had taken over the sister number 25 car from Ed's sister, Sarah, and was also on for a class win until a stone flicked up, dislodged the cam belt and forced a late retirement. That promoted the John Watt Christian Prosser BMW back into 10th spot as the only other Class 4 car to make the top 10. Christy Duran was another late retiree with overheating issues. As the checkered flag approached, Harris looked to have done enough to fend off Rose for the final spot of the podium, but cruelly, his Seeker would stop on track on the final lap of the race, promoting Rose to 3rd. There was no disputing the winner though, as Richard Neary took his 2nd outright victory and 5th straight sprint class win to maintain his unbeaten run in the category. Class 2 winners Igo and Wilcox finished 2nd overall, while Sean Cooper made late progress to win Class 3 in 6th place. Hall and Moore with the top Class 4 car in 7th, with Woods and Wakefield taking a Class 5 win in their Ford Focus. We'll get some reaction to the race after the break, plus all of the highlights from race 2. See you in a few minutes. Welcome back to round 3 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship from Oulton Park. Before the break, we saw the Mercedes of Richard Neary winning the first race of the day, from the Porsche of Adam Wilcox and Michael Igo, with the Seeker of Paul Rose 3rd. Let's hear from them now.
It was quite busy. There's a big speed differences between some of the cars, so you've got to be quite careful. I boxed the car early to get myself away from everybody, so it put me a long way back from where they were. We did that on purpose. As soon as I came and started to lap, we boxed straight away to put me backwards again.
Michael did a great first stint, lapping really consistently, really fast. And I just got in, and then it's quite an interesting contrast in the Britcar with the different speeds of the cars. Yeah, especially around here, it's so tight and close. But We're all right, we're pleased with that. Hopefully next race we'll have a challenge for overall victory, but we'll push on.
Yeah, the cars are built in Holland. We import them into the UK. They're not very expensive, but they're such a good, reliable car. And it was nice to see Alan out with his car today. But I think we'll come back and do more, because it was nice racing.
With a warm-up session, 30 minutes of qualifying, a 50-minute sprint race and a 2-hour endurance race all in one day, Britcar offers drivers a huge amount of track time. But it's a busy day for the mechanics, who have to work hard to get the cars ready in between each session, especially if the cars pick up any problems or accident damage. With the grids based on race 1 results, it was Richard Neary in the Mercedes that led the charge over the start line, tracked all the way into Old Hall Corner by Michael Igoe's Porsche. The sakers of Paul Rose and Steve Harris were absent, having only signed up for the first race of the day. Ross Wiley therefore promoted to 3rd on the grid in the FF Course Ferrari. The sole remaining saker of David Bryce slotting into 4th, ahead of the Edmore and Marmaduke Hall Ginetta. Repair work to the Maximum Motorsport Seat of Matt Jackson meant that he had to start from the pit lane. Over Hilltop for the first time, Neary had maintained the lead, but the Ferrari now was in his mirrors, having got past the Porsche into the hairpin. The Tocqueville Motorsport Ginetta still led the second group, with the white G55 of Darren Lewis coming under fire from his Team Hard teammate Tom Barley, just about fending off the 24 car into the chicane. Mike McCullum 8th in the black KTM. British touring car star Matt Jackson, meanwhile, was busy carving his way through the field, climbing back up from that pit lane start. The Class 1 cars of Neary and Wiley ran nose to tail at the end of lap 1, both key contenders for this year's Sprint Category Championship. Neary so far unbeaten this season, but with former British GT and Porsche Carrera Cup driver Wiley looking the quicker of the two. Ed Moore's Ginetta was still 5th and edging clear of the 2 newer G55s of Lewis and Barley, who switched positions into Old Hall thanks to a tidy move from the latter. Closing up to the pair of them now was McCullum in the track-focused KTM Crossbow, an exciting battle in prospect. Back over Hilltop and still the Mercedes led. A real driver's challenge, Oulton Park is one of the narrowest circuits in the UK, and Neary was driving superbly, offering Wiley no opportunity to come through. Having made that move for 6th place and the Class 3 lead, Barley was already pulling away from Lewis, whose main concern was now trying to keep McCullum at bay. But with excellent drive out of the preceding corner, McCullum was unstoppable as he charged past into Foster's. Just behind, Christian Prosser ran straight on and had to guide the sole remaining Moss Motorsport BMW down the escape road, the sister car having retired with a broken diff. Onto lap 3 and Wiley lined up his first attempt to take the lead, darting out of the Mercedes slipstream and pulling off a bold move into Old Hall. Neary's job now to remain as close as possible to the Ferrari for the opening stint. Despite a puff of smoke from the saker of David Bryce as he downshifted, the car was running well, 4th overall and 2nd in Class 2 behind Michael Igoe's Porsche. Tom Barley continued to star as he rapidly got onto the tail of Ed Moore. A big luck down the inside from Barley, but he remained 6th for now and dropped back slightly on the run down to Cascades. McCullum meanwhile was looking rapid in 7th and starting to pull away from Lewis in the other Ginetta G55. And then a cloud of dust as off the road went Alex Day, the Audi suffering brake failure. Grateful of finding some runoff, Day headed back to the pits. And there was a spectacular spin from Tim Docker as he pirouetted onto the grass at Old Hall. Next to go was the Team Hard Ginetta of Darren Lewis and Adam Hatfield, out with a broken gearbox. This brought about a safety car that would change the complexion of the race for the sprint teams that were only running the first 50 minutes of the 2-hour race. Rules regarding maximum driver periods meant that it was too early for most to make their driver changes, but the solo drivers were free to pit whenever, and they took their chance. Endurance competitors Tom Barley and Matt Jackson stayed out and moved up to 1st and 2nd, an order that Jackson didn't take too long to reverse. McCullum was up to 3rd in the KTM, with Neary as the leading sprint entrant, now 4th after his pit stop. Ross Wiley had also pitted, even knowing that he would have to hop back into the car at the end to avoid Mason going over the maximum driver time. But the gamble never really paid off. With more power, the Class 1 Mercedes quickly moved back up to second place overall. His nearest sprint category rival now the Porsche of Adam Wilcox, around 7 seconds adrift. Having rocketed up the order during the pit window, the bespoke 911 of Dave Bennett and Marcus Fothergill was up to third place and on for their first podium of the year. The endurance class Ginetta of Sarah Moore was spotted limping back to the pits with a broken left rear, but would later rejoin the race. And there was a near miss as the Merc got out of shape and took to the grass at Falstons, the only misstep in an otherwise excellent drive. Rick Woods and Mark Wakefield were effectively going about their business en route to another Class 5 win in the HSG Ford Focus, 1 lap clear of nearest rival Andy Napier in his Lotus Elise. 1 place ahead of the Focus on the road was Chris Murphy, who would take Sprint Class 3 honours for Whitebridge Motorsport. While a fast-charging John Watt did a great job to guide the BMW back up to 4th place overall to pick up the Class 4 win. With the first 50 minutes of the 2-hour race up though, it was another Sprint Class victory for Richard Neary and ABBA Racing. Igo and Wilcox winning Class 2 and taking 2nd place overall, with Fothergill and Bennett an excellent 3rd. Watt and Prosser, Purbrick and Bryce, and then Hall and Moore completing the top 6. Those endurance class teams contesting the full 2-hour race now made their mid-race pit stops. Tom Barley coming in from 2nd place to hand over to Simon Rudd. Stuart Lyne still waiting to take over from race leader Matt Jackson. And from 3rd place, Sean Cooper was next into the KTM after a very strong first stint from Mike McCullum. With the wheel fixed, Sarah Moore would hand the top with Ginetta to Matt Greenwood from 4th place. So, Team Hard were on for their best result of the season after a terrific start to the race from Tom Barley.
Absolutely epic. Really enjoyed it. Really tight, really close racing, very clean. The IG engine carbon clean car, just faultless the whole stint. It was excellent.
Back on track, the Maximum Motorsport Seat held a comfortable lead, but there was drama afoot as the officials spotted that Matt Jackson had overrun the maximum stint time allowed for any one driver in a 2-car team. The result, exclusion from the race. A huge frustration after what had been a dazzling performance. Having dispatched of Simon Rudd's Ginetta, this now moved Sean Cooper up into the lead of the race aboard the track-focused KTM. Rudd promoted to 2nd, and in turn the number 25 Ginetta of Greenwood moved up onto the final step of the podium. While Rick and Brad Neverson, now up into the endurance class, made it a great day for track-focused as they brought the Cayman home in 4th. So it was a maiden Britcar victory for a delighted Sean Cooper and Mike McCullum after 2 hard-fought hours of racing here at Oulton Park. Before we hear from our race winners, here's confirmation of the endurance class results.
I think the circuit really suits it. It's our home track. The car's not especially fast in a straight line, but it's really good through the corners. So yeah, definitely suits us.
We were running very well at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago, and it all went horribly wrong with about 5 minutes to go. So I was sort of trying to relax. Inside I was all turmoil, but on the outside I was trying to keep it calm. But Sean did a fantastic job, and we've had a really good day. Really worked out very well indeed.
After 3 events and 6 races, it's Greenwood and Moore who now lead the endurance class, but only 11 points clear of Rudd and Barley. Meanwhile, Richard Neary extends his lead in the sprint category. Huge congratulations then to Track Focused on their maiden victory. The next round of the Dunlop Endurance Championship takes us to Donington Park. Thanks for watching.